I present to you for induction into the Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame, Robert Bob Gould.
Thank you, guys. First, I said to my wife, I gotta have a tie. She said, you don't own a tie. I said, well, let's go buy a tie. You don't know how to tie a tie. And as usual, she was right. I was wearing sweat clothes before they were known as leisure wear. So here we go. Good evening, fellow inductees, award winners, Hall of Fame committee and members, friends, colleagues, supporters of sports, and most importantly, my family for joining us here at this wonderful event. This honor fills me with a feeling of humble gratitude to everyone who has been a part of my life. There's a saying that everyone is a thread in the fabric of someone's life. These simple words continue to mold and shape my DNA. Now for the Cliff Note version of what's in the book. When Randy first saw it, he said, "This is longer than The Irishman." So this will be the short version. If you ever see that movie, be sure you bring lunch and dinner, because it's a long one. How does a young husky boy from Greenhurst, New York, get to the Hall? Well, longevity has its pluses, for sure, but more so having great friends, teammates, coaches, and positive role models, and a supportive family gave me a solid foundation growing up. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Thank you, Greenhurst gang. Thank you, my coaches and teachers like Jim Lucy, Hall of Fame member Mel Llewellyn, and my football coach, Ray Tudor. In college, Professor of Adaptive Sports, Dr. Joe Winnick, showed me that everyone should be accepted in sports. They all provided many threads into my fabric, but the biggest and best thread has been my wife, who I met at Brockport, and who has encouraged me and enabled me to have followed this wonderful path. Being able to coach locally and teach locally and getting involved in the Special Olympics along with high school sports has been so rewarding. The threads from the hundreds of, if not thousands of athletes who have crossed my life have taught me not just about sports, but about life in general. My colleagues at Frewsburg, the athletes, they've all had a piece in my life. They've all given a thread to what I consider my life today. It never seemed like work, coaching, either it's in school or working with our Special Olympic athletes. I would do it all for free if I do it over again. Just don't tell the New York State retirement system. So once again, a big thanks to all. Right now, I'd like to just tell a couple stories about how one's fabric is formed. When I was a junior at Maple Grove High School, I was asked to be a foreign exchange student. And I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. Next thing I knew, I was in Bolivia. And I didn't speak real good Spanish. I'd been there for 3 weeks, and I came home one day, and my Bolivian mother was meeting me at the door. Revolucion! Revolucion! I knew right then we were in trouble, because that sounded like revolution. And sure enough, I never went to school for 6 months. They closed the schools. So I was a foreign exchange student without going to school. But the neat thing was, I made a semi-pro basketball team after having been cut at Maple Grove 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th grade. So I got to tour for 6 months around Bolivia playing with these guys, and it really improved my game, so when I got back, I made the team as a senior. Revolucion. Yeah, revolucion. But what it did teach me was how important sports are as a bringing together. In a country like Bolivia that was really ravaged by revolution, by poverty, sports like soccer, of course, and basketball made a level playing field for everybody in that country. And it taught me that sports is that important. I came back, graduated, went up to Brockport, and got involved in Special Olympics. The first World Games were held at Brockport in 1979. And I was able to go up there and spend the weekend. And the interesting thing was that the Soviet Union sent a Special Olympic team to the World Games. But those same years, the year later, in 1980, there were the boycotts where the USA and Russia didn't go to the Olympics. But there was Special Olympics that brought the countries together. So it was really, once again, showing me that sport should be something that would be a unifying measure for our life. And probably the most memorable thing that sticks in my head of my experiences, besides being able to coach all the kids that I've loved dearly to be on our teams, was being able to have lunch with Muhammad Ali. When I was in Ireland in 2003 at the World Special Olympic Games, I was the powerlifting coach for the female USA team, and I had an African-American girl who was a lifter, and they came and got me one day and said, bring Latasha with you, we're going to have lunch, and the champ will be there. And then we went to a lunch with about 30 people, 30 athletes, and we were in a tent, and about halfway through our lunch, the flap opened up, and in a golf cart came Muhammad Ali. He was ravaged by Parkinson's, but he got out and sat at that table, and shaking, he just nodded at all the kids, and he had a speaker there who said, the champ will have time for all of you when you're done with your lunch. So we all lined up, and Muhammad hugged every one of those kids. And he was so gracious with his time. And I just felt like the world was coming together there. And he even let us, coaches, come up to him. And I went down and I shook his hand. I said, Muhammad, I've been a fan of yours, and I appreciate you giving time to the athletes. And he kind of pulled my shirt down, and he tapped me on the cheek. So I don't know how many people in this room have been punched by Muhammad Ali, but I have. So I like to just say, sports is the conduit for bringing us together. And the last little story is in the book, but I just like to tell it out to everybody that I meet. In 2015, I was chosen to be the venue director for the weightlifting in LA for the World Games. And my job was to get all the lifters in the proper events, in their classes. And sure enough, there was a mistake on the computer that a young man from Iran lifted in the wrong class. And they came to me afterwards, and of course they speak Farsi, and I don't. And the interpreter said, can you take care of this? So I said, well, I'll try my best. And the next day I got to the computer guy, and sure enough, he went and lifted. I don't know how things went because I was backstage. And later that day, as we're picking up for the end of the day, I see a door open, and this little Iranian weightlifter who was about this high but this wide came running at me. I'm thinking, uh-oh. I hope things were okay. And he ran up and he gave me a gigantic bear hug. And he looked up at me and said, thank you very much. And the interpreter said to me, those are the first words of English he's ever spoken. And even to this day, it brings a tear to my eye to think how sports can bring us together. Now, I know a lot of the high school kids have left, and over the years I've worked with the high school kids to try to get them to come together and to really find the threads that can make their life better. And not just their life, but make the lives around them better. So make that motto. I always try to find the we, not me in life. The we, not me in life. And find those threads that will shape your own fabric. And let sports be the great equalizer of our society. Take your experiences to achieve success, but try to make a difference in our world. I brought a t-shirt that we used at our last workshop, and I'll just speak out loud here. Our workshop was called You Unlimited. And if you follow that, it'll equal unlimited you. And we try to get this across to all the kids in our county that it's important to follow those words. So I hope they have. My years have been wonderful working with kids. I want to thank everybody that's here. I want to thank my wife Lori, Greg and Jordan, and everybody that's been part of my life for being part of we, not me. Good night and good sports.
Thank you, Bob. Perfect.
Thank you very much.